very warm welcome to all our viewers and welcome to a new edition of Africa Today, our show bringing you all the latest news and events happening all around the African continent. My name is Angie Meher and I'm joining you for today's edition of the show. As usual, we begin straight away with a look at some of the news making the headlines, beginning with the French Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu, which will be arriving in Egypt on Tuesday to discuss the latest developments in Gaza. The visit comes as the situation remains tragic in the enclave and as aid deliveries continue to arrive at Egypt's Rafah border crossing, ready to enter Gaza. We have more details in this story.
France's Defense Minister Sébastien Lecornu is being dispatched as of Tuesday to the Middle East to discuss the Gaza situation and regional security issues at the request of French President Emmanuel Macron. Lecornu said that the trip will start in Egypt and will continue in the Gulf region. It will end Friday with meetings with the Israelis, the first time a French defense minister visits them since 2000. Meanwhile, in Egypt, aid deliveries continued at the Rafah border crossing, readying to pass to Gaza. Officials said nearly 161 trucks carrying food and medical aid and livelihood materials arrived at the crossing. They said the Rafah border crossing has witnessed the exit of 600 Egyptians and foreigners into Egypt. The Spanish Foreign Ministry said about 40 of its nationals had left Gaza on Monday to Rafah, while 80 others are expected to follow suit on Tuesday, all part of 170 Spanish nationals demanding to be evacuated from Gaza. On the ground, fierce clashes continue between resistance and occupation forces in northern and southern Gaza. Occupation forces are trying to go deeper in the axis of western Gaza, especially in Al-Nasr neighborhood and Ash-Shati camp. For its part, Hamas movement announced that it fired a batch of missiles at Tel Aviv and announced destroying 20 military vehicles totally or partially in 48 hours, in addition to attacking buildings that was sheltering Israeli occupation soldiers with grenades and shells. For its part, the Israeli occupation army announced the killing of an officer and a soldier, in addition to the injury of 3 other soldiers in clashes with the Palestinian resistance in northern Gaza.
Moving to other news, the Intra-African Trade Fair, the IATF 2023 in its 3rd edition, opened in Cairo on Monday. Cairo said the event, which runs till Wednesday, is an important venue to encourage intra-African trade. We have more details in this report.
The IATF 2023 was inaugurated in Egypt on Monday. Means of boosting intra-African trade and cooperation between Egypt and African countries was highlighted by Cairo at the inauguration. The former Nigerian president, who is the head of the Consultative Council of IATF, gave a speech at the inaugural session. He said Cairo offers great support for African causes. He also said participants at the IATF seek to establish a market for intra-African trade. The Secretary General of African Trade Free Strategy gave a speech before the event. He expressed appreciation to Egypt for hosting the fair for the 3rd time. He also said Egypt was among the pioneer countries implementing intra-trade. The AU Economic Development Commissioner addressed the IATF 2023. He said the event is being held at a time marred by instability. He praised Cairo's hosting of the event and said it provides information to push forward intra-trade in the continent. He also said a number of deals will be signed during the IATF. The president of Afreximbank also gave a speech before the inaugural session at IATF 2023. He said holding the IATF 2023 is a proof of the seriousness to support African trade. He said the occupation had prevented Africa from industrializing raw materials, and Africa must embark on industrialization and activation of intra-trade for the sake of development. The theme of this year's event is building bridges for a successful AFCFTA. The IATF 2023 is held under the auspices of Afreximbank, the AU Commission and the Secretariat of the African Continental Free Trade Area AFCFTA, and is to last until Wednesday.
We're now delighted to be joined over the telephone by our guest for the afternoon, Dr. Sherif El-Gebali, member of the Africa Affairs Committee at Parliament House. Very good afternoon to you, Dr. Sherif.
Good afternoon. My name is Sherif El-Gebali, not El-Gebali.
I beg your pardon, sir?
My name is El-Gebali, not El-Gebali.
El-Gebali, right. I beg your pardon, excuse me.
Okay.
Right, Dr. Sherif, thank you so much for your time this afternoon. And let me start by asking you, how do you see the importance of the IATF, the Intra-African Trade Fair that was inaugurated yesterday in Cairo?
This is the most important trade fair in Africa, and it's #1. So And this is the third edition. The first one's in Egypt, second was in South Africa, and the third one now is in Egypt. So that's biggest venue where producers, buyers, sellers, everybody, I mean, from Africa and outside Africa also come. Outside Africa, people, countries who have interest in Africa, they come and meet under this umbrella. So that's a top event.
Indeed. Dr. Sharif, now speakers at the IATF all, came to the same conclusion that the fair, of course, is being held at a time of great instability, whether it's in the region or in many parts of the African continent. How do these new challenges affect intra-African trade, in your opinion?
Well, these new challenges put more priority on Africa to gather and to unite and to work together to be able to deal with this, outside effects that are coming due to the crisis in Ukraine, before that COVID. So, they have to work together. Africa has to work together, has to unite together, have to implement the free trade agreement as soon as possible. These are elements that must be done in order to be able to overcome at least part of the negative effects.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And what, are some of the most attractive fields you find to be attractive for foreign investments to come to the African continent?
Africa is full of potential. Agriculture is a great potential. Africa has about more than 75% of the arable lands in the world today.
Yes.
So that agriculture is a great place to invest in Africa. And that's, of course, apart from the minerals, of course, and oil and gas, and all other minerals such as lithium, which is made for producing car batteries, electrical car batteries, and so on. Mm-hmm. So the problem is not the potential is there, but they need to work together. They need to devise a strategy for industry, strategy for agriculture, so together so that they can make use of these vast resources they have.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. And also, Dr. Sharif, now the private sector has a very effective role to play when it comes to intra-African trade. They are, the pushing force behind that after state agreements. What role do you see the private sector playing in this regard, especially during, as we said, challenging times as these?
The private sector, of course, has a major role to play, of course, but you must understand that Africa, 75% of the African business is small and medium-sized enterprises. So yes, they have to be guided. They have to, the organizations like the Africa Trade Area, Continental Free Trade Area, or Afro-Exim Bank, all have to help these to be able to deal and to integrate within the economy of Africa, mm-hmm, because they need a lot of work. They need capacity building in different areas and so on. So that's the problem with Africa. The majority is small and medium-sized who have no experience in many fields, but we have to help that. The different African organizations under the AU and others have to work with them. And I always propose that we should make a think tank from the big African business leaders, big African business champions, to work together and put the roadmap on how to develop further.
Absolutely. Now, of course, Dr. Cairo has recently said Egypt's exports to African countries have now amounted to approximately $6.2 billion annually, with some of the most important exports being heavy equipment as well as paper products. How do you read this number, and is there room
this is the majority of the Egyptian exports to Africa is to North Africa, not to Sub-Saharan Africa. Mm-hmm. 75% is to North Africa. So Sub-Saharan is not this number, okay? We talk now Sub-Saharan mainly, okay? No, Egypt has, this figure is a meager figure. It has to improve a lot. This can be 10 times this figure if we work seriously on Africa and make logistic centers and to do a lot of work. But this number is not, because actually what goes to Sub-Saharan Africa is in the range of 1.6, 1.7 billion out of this figure, okay? So we need to do a lot of work there.
Absolutely. Finally, Doctor, if I may ask, what do you see is necessary now that needs to be implemented in order to increase intra-African trade, as well as work on this trade strategy amongst African nations?
There are a lot of things to do. I mean, Africa needs to improve its infrastructure to develop the intra-Africa trade. Infrastructure needs a lot of work in Africa. Transportation locally is very expensive. So that's one point. The payment, Africa has shortage of foreign exchange, so we must develop a system to settle accounts in local currencies between countries. Barter trade also is important for Africa to avoid this foreign currency problem. These are a lot of things to do. So I think that, as I said, we need to bring the champions of the business leaders of Africa to sit together and put the right roadmap that includes all the items that need to be dealt with. Okay?
Yes, absolutely. I'd like to thank you very, very much,
Thank
Dr.
you very much.
Sherif El-Gabali, member of the African Affairs Committee of Parliament. Thank you very much, sir, for your time and your insight, and for joining us on today's edition of Africa Today. And still with more news, moving this time to the Democratic Republic of Congo. Spokesperson for Congo's army said an attack in Beni Territory's Watalinga chiefdom was carried out by the Allied Democratic Forces, an armed group based in eastern Congo. At least 23 people were killed in the attack late Sunday. We have more details.
Over 23 people were killed when militants raided a village in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo late on Sunday. The toll was reported by a local official and a humanitarian worker. The attackers tied up villagers and killed them with machetes and other weapons while others fled. A civil society leader said some may have drowned as they tried to cross the Lamia River into Uganda, noting that many were still missing. A local official said later on Monday that the death toll had risen to at least 33, including an army captain. 2 were children who drowned as they tried to reach Uganda. 23 victims were buried in the village, while 6 people were taken hostage to help carry looted goods and then executed. A humanitarian worker confirmed this team had helped bury 23 bodies. He said the army captain's body had been taken to another location. A spokesperson for Congo's army said the attack in Beni Territory's Watalinga chiefdom was carried out by the Allied Democratic Forces ADF. The ADF formed in Uganda before moving over the border in the 1990s and has been blamed for thousands of killings in the last decade. Congo's army said it killed at least 6 of the militants that night without going into details on the operation. The latest reported killing took place as Congo gears up for general elections on December 20, for which campaigning is set to begin next week. The Electoral Commission said on Monday that the vote would go ahead despite security concerns.
With this final news item from Congo, we wrap up today's edition of Africa Today. We do hope you have enjoyed it. You're in the company of myself, Angie Meher. Many thanks for joining us.